morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Kev Baker, and I'm here for the next 2 hours to hopefully blow your mind. Welcome back, everyone. It's another week of live radio right here on the Kev Baker Show on Truth Frequency Radio, tfrlive.com. Want to give a big shout out to everyone that's hanging out over there in the Wookiee Cave at tfrlive.com/chat. Yes, our very own little cave where we can retreat to and try and make sense of some of the madness going on in the world. And as I'm about to show you today, the madness, if it was on a dial, it's been cranked up right now. But never a dull day in Woketopia. And we might get into some woke news along the way as well. So there's your warning on that front. And I don't know if you were able to join me and Scott yesterday on the stream over on YouTube. If you did, you were part of something very, very special indeed. And it really did, it took its toll on me because myself and Scott normally will do 90 minutes at the weekend. We'll go in, it's rapid fire, a lot of humour, a lot of non-serious stuff. But from time to time, myself, Scott and Joe, we hit on topics, and it's almost as if there's I don't want to say a spirit takes over the actual information or the show per se. But I remember when I was first going through my waking up period, and I was looking for as much information as I could digest. And often I'd be listening to our very own Chris and Cherie Geo, and they would have some of the very best guests that you can imagine. And now and again they would get on Christopher Everard. And what would unfold, typically, when those three amazing people got together, it was more than just a show. It transcended your normal kind of podcast. And the listeners, the hosts, everyone that's a part of that, you're almost synced up in a subconscious quantum kind of way. You only know it when you're there. It's a feeling. And I think last night for one of the first times, the synergy that myself and Scott and the energy that we'd built up, and then we were joined by Max, one of our very own listeners, and he came in and he really just took it to the next level. And we were connecting dots, and we don't even know where it was coming from. Scott was blown away. I was blown away. Max was blown away. Everyone that was there was blown away. And we're going to keep going, because in hour number 2 tonight, I'm getting a pull back towards this ancient woo, because we can't possibly understand some of the technological and some of the current events going on right now, some of the technology that's rolling out, without actually really looking hard at the past. And it's amazing, because over time, you then start to collect this database of factoids, as I call it, and you start to see this bigger picture forming. It's really amazing. And you start to build that tapestry, and you see how, although places and people separated by geography and time, they still hold valuable pieces of the puzzle. And I started thinking about that bigger today. It's really got me thinking big time, the shows we've been doing lately. And last night just really encapsulated everything, and we took it to a new level, looking at archaeology that I'd never really heard of. But we talk about the scattering of the languages and things like that at a time when we reached a level of knowledge before. And I'm actually now wondering if that's almost the microcosm. It seems like the macro, right? To scatter everyone's language around the planet, break it all up, nobody can communicate properly again. But I think that's actually just one smaller piece of an even bigger puzzle. An intergalactic puzzle, perhaps. I think the human story, whatever it may be, because we've been told so much lies, so much of it has been left out, so much of it has been inserted that we don't really know what that is. But even when we do start to put together the full true story of what we're here for, why we're here, who put us here, where we're going, even then I think only that contributes a little bit to an even bigger picture. And you'd really have to look at the scattering of different species around different worlds then. And I think that's the way you would have to unlock the secrets of the universe that we try to do here on shows like this. We pursue the answers to the big questions like what's it all about? What is life all about? Are we in a simulation? How does it all work? What is reality? And yeah, we can look back and we can put together certain aspects of it from our own experience, our own story here on Earth, the human story. But I think even bigger, we're never going to be able to unlock those bigger secrets because each and every, call them extraterrestrial species, call them what you will, ET, other life forms, just as special and of no less or more importance than us. It's life after all, right? And I think our universal story, the bigger picture, how you unlock the secrets of the universe, it doesn't just lie here on planet Earth with our already scattered story to give us one pixel in that bigger picture of just what on earth this is all about. So that's what we tried to do here on the Kev Baker Show. And in hour number 2 tonight, we'll be going back down this Germanic Norse rabbit hole with Max. Max has agreed, and I've asked him very nicely. I gave him umpteen chances to get out of this, but he's going to join us again from Germany today on the show. And I want you to really, some days, you listeners out there, you take it to a whole new level, and it energizes me. It really does, because today I've been really tired. I took a lot of hard work last night. It might not look it, but when you come off the show, the adrenaline catches up, and it kind of, it just hits you. So I slept most of the day today. But I got a parcel today that really kind of picked me up, put a bounce back in my step. And I want to thank Jules out there, one of our viewers, who sent me an absolutely fantastic Wookiee mug. It's a Wookiee mug. And for people over there on the TFR, what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to take a picture of that and I'm going to send it to you, hopefully during one of the breaks, because you listeners, honestly, different class. And thank you so, so much, Jules. And the coffee, oh, my word, it is absolutely top notch. It truly is. Now, I've got a lot of news to get into before we get to Max tonight, and we go down this Nordic, Germanic rabbit hole that leads to little people like me. And I'm having a laugh because I'm obviously quite a small guy, a pocket rocket, you could say. And we're going to be talking about dwarves, elves, and Nordic and Germanic lore mythology. Now, for some reason, like I say, I'm feeling a real tug towards this information. I truly am. And we follow patterns. We go with synchronicities here, and we cross paths with people and topics at just the right time. I think that's what we've got going on with Max today. So if you want to be a part of what I think is going to be something special in hour 2 today, stay tuned. And if you know anyone out there who likes a bit of ancient woo, a bit of lore, a bit of mythology, and how it ties into the bigger picture and some of the occulted knowledge that we seek today, then hit that share button. Tell people over on Twitter, Facebook that TFR is where it's happening. And right now it's the Kev Baker Show giving you that information. Now then, before we get there though, we've got lots to get into, like I said. And first up, I want us to take a look at our very, very dystopian future that isn't too far away at all. In fact, it's just around the corner. And I feel almost wrong taking a drink from a Wookiee. It's almost like somebody scalped the Wookiee and now I'm drinking from him like some kind of crazy warp trophy. But Jules, this is fantastic. I love it. And the coffee. So yes, our dystopian future. And the first article today that we're going to go to comes from Futurism. Now then, great website. You get some great, short, concise stories, kind of summaries of the new technologies that are coming. And what it does well is, I find anyway, it provides a lot of links to the source material that they're taking this from. And it's really imperative that we all get in that good habit of checking links, going back as far as we can to see who was the first person to say this. Where did it originate from? Is it something that we can prove factually, or is it somebody else's hearsay and rumour? There's nothing wrong with hearsay and rumour, so long as you tell the people when you're passing the information that that's all it is. But this pans out. And get a load of this. How creepy is this, right? This company is paying people $1,830 to film them constantly. And that's why I'm really calling today's show, and it comes up in the article here. But would you trade your privacy for cash? Think about that. Would you give up what little privacy we have left and be treated like a Big Brother contestant, right? 24/7, every aspect, every nook and cranny of your life absolutely laid bare online, as opposed to just being stored on a server secretly somewhere, you know? All of it's there anyway. But would you be willing to do that to get some moolah, maybe some Bitcoin in the future, some hard cash, something that you can trade for goods, okay? Whatever it may be in this dystopic future we're going to. But they're literally trialing out right now the kind of things that tie into the basic income, that universal basic income that we may or may not have to deal with sooner or later. And I'm not criticizing it. I'm not bigging it up. I'm just being very factual. I'm looking at the future, the way we're going. There's a lot of robots out there. A lot of jobs are getting taken up, and it's a no-brainer for companies to go for robots over humans. They can work 24/7, no holidays, far more productive, okay? As great as we are, okay, some jobs definitely better done by robots, and it's cheaper. So what are these people going to work as? Well, that's what's brought up talk of the universal basic income. And this study, oh, this is going to creep you out, or at least it should creep you out. It creeped me out. Let's get into it. It says cameras will record them everywhere but the bathroom for an entire month. If automation takes off the way some predict, it will. A whole lot of people are going to find themselves unemployed in the future. Now, some researchers have proposed using a universal basic income, a conditional sum of money or an unconditional sum of money given to every member of society to ensure those folks can still afford to buy things they need to live. But a dystopian new social experiment, and it's an experiment, I say, aims to find out if the unemployed would be willing to sell their privacy, literally sell their privacy in exchange for money. It turns out some might be. And the current going rate is about $1,830 per month. The experiment is called Project Exo-Graph, and it's the work of Plasma Inc., a Japanese company with the goal of promoting society further through science and technology and contributing to the well-being of mankind. All very nice and cutesy and cozy and no harder, rough edges on the face of it, right? But we're going to take a look at that company in just a moment. But it goes on to say here, for the experiment, 4 people agreed to let Plasma install cameras throughout their homes, with the only blind spots being in the bathrooms. Now, for the next month, those cameras will record everything that the participants do. And in exchange, they'll receive 200,000 yen each, around the sum of $1,830, like we've said, which is about 50% more than they'd get through subsistence level welfare payments. So it's double the cash that they would typically, or they would get today as things stand. So they would be twice as well off or twice better off than they are today if this was to be implemented, okay? Or should I say, when this is to be implemented. You know something like this is coming. You know it is, and if it's not over here, it'll definitely be China. And I do think it will be over here as well. I really, really do. So then, it says here, at the end of the month, Plasma will anonymize the footage of the participants, or so that the participants aren't identifiable. Then it will talk to various companies and experts to see how the footage could be monetized. Thankfully, yeah, okay, you're meant to believe this, but thankfully, it won't actually sell the footage. Now, the idea is that the companies are already buying people's digital data, so it's worth exploring the market for the average person's real life data, especially given that we could be headed towards a future in which many people won't be able to offer their labour in exchange for money. And there's a really kind of hot topic that is being discussed right now, and it's something people really need to think about. There's already companies making money, rightly or wrongly, out of the data that we leave behind online every single day. All of the apps that we usually get for free, you'll find that when we give them access to maybe our photo album or our contact book, you know how it goes. They sell that kind of data on the back end. Maybe they're looking at your emails so that they can better refine what kind of consumer you are and target you with better ads, which means that companies will come along and pay really good information or really good money for that information. They want to really know who these ads are going to impact the most. And that's why your data out there is very valuable. Now, wouldn't you rather to make the money off of that than Facebook or any of the other companies? And they're all at it, folks. They're all at it. The internet's pretty much been a free ride, everything you install and download. And yeah, I get it. There's stuff you pay for and things, but all of that freebies. Yeah, just download that. Just download this. You know, all of it. Our phones as well with the apps. How many apps have people got on their phone that they don't even use, but they downloaded it and they gave it access to everything? Well, why shouldn't you be making that money? And I'm not telling you it's right or wrong. I'm just asking you to think about it. I'm being that little voice in your head. Well, screw them. If these corporations are making money off me, if my privacy's already gone, shouldn't I be getting that moolah? Shouldn't I be able to make coin of what I'm literally putting out there? Again, it's something I just ask people to think about. Very interesting indeed. It says, if artificial intelligence, AI, and robots see progress, then people won't have to work, and they could lead lives where they provide data for money. Plasma Inc. CEO Hiroki Eno told Japanese newspaper the Mainichi, considering that we set the amount of money based on the sum required to maintain a healthy and minimum level of living. Now, I would imagine that, you know, compared to what the government say is the minimum you can live on, you know, it would appear that this is at least double what people are getting anyway, right? Imagine that, eh? Putting a cost on living. Something far wrong with things anyway. Of course, just because Plasma is paying each person $1,830 doesn't mean companies interested in buying consumer data would be willing to do the same. But figuring out the magic number would be, or what the magic number they would be willing to part with is why Project Exo-Graph exists in the first place. So I thought to myself, let's go and take advantage of some of the links that we get from Futurism, and we'll take a look at Project Exo-Graph. Now, I've had to translate the website, so it might be a bit shady, but yeah, it's a very snazzy looking landing page, that's for sure. Big bold writing. Can you buy and sell all your life data for 200,000 yen? Question mark. If you sell all your data for a month, is there anyone who sells it? Now, this is obviously a really bad translation, okay? Are there companies that buy it? With the development of AI and robots, it is possible that people who do not have to work will appear in the future. Now, as a pioneer of the data operation, instead of providing people with a minimum amount of 200,000 yen, we will challenge to collect all the data of private life and cover the cost. And then it's got in red writing. And remember, it's a loose translation. It's going to be wrong, okay? Bits of it sound wrong. It probably is wrong. In the current situation where data is collected and traded by a large company without the user's knowledge, is Exo-Graph, which declares data acquisition to users and provides monetary consideration to the public, is ethically wrong. So they're basically saying, how about we sell your data and we cut you in? Almost like a digital agent, if you will. to look after your digital image rights. I watch a lot of soccer, football as we call it over here, and you hear about the bigger footballers, Ronaldos and Messi's and Harry Kane's and all of these people, but they've got things called image rights. And it's almost like now you've got this company here saying, right, you've got your digital data rights, Kev. You have ownership of that, but how about we come in and we'll take over selling your data as opposed to the Facebooks and every other company out there doing it, and we'll give you a nice healthy chunk, a kind of cut in return. Remember, this is going to be going on in the background anyway. It's not as if you're giving away something that isn't already been taken from you. Wouldn't you rather be paid for it? Ooh, it's a bit of a moral dilemma, right? It really is. So then, yeah, this is Project Exo-Graph. I'd never heard of it before. I've got a couple other headlines that tie into this dystopic future that we're moving into. Check this out here. And the story we're going to go to is one that many shows like this could say, look, we've been telling you so. And it's not just people like me telling people so now. Even the FBI are warning people about smart TV security. Folks, it's a no-brainer. And I'm a hypocrite. I'm a total hypocrite. I've got television behind me. It's a smart television. It's networked. And anything on a network, folks, anything that is networked is vulnerable. Plus, then you've got to deal with all of the hidden tech, the hidden kind of firmware in there that's taking all of your data anyway. And although my television is the model that comes without an inbuilt camera, do I honestly believe that? Do I hell? I really don't. I still think the camera technology's in there. Will I take it off and prove it? No, I won't. They're expensive. Can't afford a new one. But yeah, you see how we've almost been building out the system for them? It's so weird and twisted and warped the way that they've done it. 30, 40 years ago, if they'd said to people, we're going to put cameras and microphones and everything into your home, we're going to listen to you, we're going to watch you, we're going to take that information, we're going to get inside your head, we're going to use something called the internet that's going to bombard your brain with information, it's going to overload it. We'll have some of the most clever psychologists in the background, training algorithms to really focus in and push you one way or another. What do you think people would have said? They would have looked at each other and gone, you are off your head. You're crazy. That's like something out of Orwell's 1984, right? And yet here we are now, and what are we doing? We're queuing up in the cold, middle of the night, to get a bargain on the very equipment I just described a moment ago. And we do it with pleasure in our faces. Some people even leave themselves short. Maybe not enough money for food at the end of a month like this because of Christmas coming up, but just to get that device, that thing. And whatever benefits it may give you. And I get it, I love my tech. Never lose sight of the fact of what it really is. It's dual purpose in your life. For yes, it gives you lots of good stuff. It gives us this show that we're doing today. I don't knock the tech, I love it. But that doesn't mean I'm naive and I don't realise that all of this data in the background, that's what the bigger picture's all about. Even with the 5G as well. Sure, it could very well have really bad effects on our health long term. The jury's still out on that because as much as we say the studies haven't been done to prove that it's safe, I still don't think there's been enough studies done to say that it's truly dangerous. But without that side of things, and it's still on the table, think of the surveillance aspects. Sure, we can stream our Thor movie on the bus or the subway or whatever you want to do. That's cool, that's great. But it's the traffic going the other way. The invisible ones and zeros. The ones that make up those invisible bars all around us. That keep us inside this simulation, this prison planet, whatever way you want to describe it. And we queue up and we shed loads of cash to do it. But yeah, I thought it was just interesting. It made me smile. Even the FBI are warning people about the smart TV. And people will still sit there and say, that Kev Baker, he's a conspiracy theorist, right? He's got the tinfoil hat on. Imagine thinking your TV spies on you. What a loon ball. This loon ball will be back after these short messages. Don't go anywhere. And don't forget, we're going right down that rabbit hole later. Oh my, Hour number 2 will be along the way soon, but we'll come back on the other side for the dystopian future with KBS. Don't go anywhere. Well, indeed, ladies and gents, Hod God, Valiant, JoJo's First World. Jason, first in the chat room today. Congratulations, sir. Well done. I doff my cap to you, my good friend. And he was also talking about his latest ghost hunting expedition. I didn't catch all of it, Jason, but I'm sure you'll keep everyone up to date. If not, I'll catch you over on Discord. Big welcome to everyone that's tuned in today. I hope we're still going out live. I haven't had time to even check. Yes, we are. So we've got Hod God in there. Who else is kicking about? Blue Days. How you doing? We've got Germanis, McGrinder, Valiant Vigilante. Nice, like it. That's what we need. Lots of vigilantes, but peaceful ones, right? So we've got Ben Parker in there. Jimbo, good to see you. Let's get some music on the background since we're doing a little bit of a shout out, right? What music will we have? We will have our safe space music, right? Sorry about the safe space today, folks, but I was wiped out after last night's show. Whoa, that was some good woo, right? But who else have we got in the chat room here? Let me just switch cameras. Boom, just like that. Who else have we got? We have got ZX is in there. We also have Mark, the Pharaoh's Mind Demon. Oh, Germanis, thank you very, very much. Absolutely.
Stay off social media, people, and don't vote. You just encourage them.
Ha ha! There, ladies and gentlemen, is the wisest advice that I or Germanis or anyone could offer you, especially in the kind of loony season that we're in right now, days away from one of those events where people go and stick bits of paper in a box and they think it's got magical powers and all of a sudden everything will be good again. You know what day I'm talking about, but I'm being very careful not to get all politicized right now. And we're going to be going back in a moment. I've got a couple of more stories that really tie in with all of the kind of craziness that's pimping out and building out the panopticon of invisible ones and zeros that we call reality. And yet, in reality, we're truly, like I say, building the system that will lead to our own demise. Ooga booga, ooga ooga. You know I don't get off fear porn. I'm building it up. I'm just having some fun. But yeah, look at the mug. Jules, if you're out there, check that out, folks. How cool is that? And Anne, she's like, I don't know, a kid in a candy store. Literally a kid in a candy store. You enjoying your Jolly Roger, Anne? Is it Jolly Rogers or Jolly Ranchers? I heard you like the Jolly Rogers. Yes, so thank you, Jules. But how cool a mug is that, folks? That's awesome. You people out there are fantastic. Remember, we need some more members here, folks. We're at 134. Yo, Paranormal Portal is in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, indeed. Don't forget to subscribe to Brent's channel. Check out what he's doing over there. Love his work. And if you're into the paranormal woo, you need to get into the Paranormal Portal. So check that out. We're about to go back live to the network in just a moment. We're going to get back into this. And then Max on the way for more from Nordic and Germanic lore. Here we go. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so glad to be here today with all of you truth seekers out there. And we're tuned in live right now to tfrlive.com, Truth Frequency Radio, where silence is consent and where we most definitely give you protection from deception. And before the break, I was getting into a whole heap of dystopian tech news. We've got another couple of headlines we can get into. We'll discuss this further. And then in hour number 2, I'm really looking forward to this because we're going to be picking up where we left off last night. And last night, something really, really special happened, and it's one of these streams that I had heard about before. And I equate it to some of the shows that I used to listen to on Coast to Coast. And like I was saying earlier with Chris and Cherie Geo, and Christopher Everard. What starts off as a normal podcast, a show, just starts to grow into something completely different. It transcends the dimensions, people come together, that energy builds, connections are made, and by the time the show finishes, the hosts, the listeners, the viewers, they all look at each other as if to say, what just happened there? And we have to go back and look at it again because it was really kind of deep rabbit holes we were going down indeed, or should I say, deep gnome holes and deep dwarf holes. And you know me, hey, once bitten, never shy. I'm keen to get some more. So Max is coming back after the break for hour number 2 on today's show. Don't miss it. Tell everyone. Hit Facebook, hit Twitter, whatever social media you're on. Instagram. That's about the one place I don't think the Kev Baker show has got any presence. Need to be changing that. Yes, indeed. So thank you all for tuning in, like I was saying. And let's get back in to some of this weird and wacky tech news. And we got a laugh. The last headline we had a bit of a laugh because imagine the FBI warning you about your actual TVs spying on you. That's the kind of thing that conspiracy theorists talk about, right? So just a couple of paragraphs from this, and then we can move on. If you just bought a smart TV on Black Friday or plan to buy one for Cyber Monday tomorrow, i.e. today, the FBI wants to know a few things. Smart TVs are like regular television sets, but with an internet connection. And like I was saying, there's the problem. Anything on a network makes you vulnerable, okay? And all of these devices, they're just hungrily gobbling up your data, gobbling up your private lives, like a Pac-Man. Remember that game? That's what it's like. Just sitting there 24/7, gobble, 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 gobble. You can't say gobble, gobble too many times. I'll probably trigger some algorithm or something. But it says here, with the advent and the growth of Netflix, Hulu, and other streaming services, most saw internet-connected televisions as the cord cutter's dream. But like anything that connects to the internet, it opens up smart TVs to security vulnerabilities and hackers. Not only that, many smart TVs come with a camera and a microphone. But as is the case with most other internet-connected devices, manufacturers often don't put security as a priority. And that's the key takeaway from the FBI Portland's field office, which just ahead of some of the biggest shopping days of the year posted a warning on its website about the risks of smart TVs or the risks that they pose. Beyond the risk that your TV manufacturer and app developers may be listening and watching you, that television can also be a gateway for hackers to come into your home. A bad cyber actor may not be able to access your lockdown computer directly, but it is possible that your unsecured TV can give him or her an easy way in the back door through your router, wrote the FBI. And the FBI warned the hackers can take control of your unsecured smart TV and in worst cases, take control of the camera and microphone to watch and listen in. How creepy is that? I know it's something, that we take for granted sometimes, but even if you're not going to put tape over your webcam or something, at least tip it up and look at the ceiling. You know what I'm saying? If you can, unplug it altogether. And again, I'm a hypocrite. It's harder for me, right? It's impractical to take it out, put it in. I put it up the way. And it sounds bad, but I've given up any expectation of privacy a long time ago. And what's even worse was I wasn't even bothered that I didn't get any cash for it, like we were talking about in part 1. And so many of us, whether we appreciate it, whether we accept it or not, we're already in that position, We already are. So many different ways that these people, that data, can get out there. So active attacks and exploits against smart TVs are rare, but not unheard of. Because every smart TV comes with their manufacturer's own software and are at the mercy of their own or their often unreliable and irregular security patching schedule, some devices are more vulnerable than others. Earlier this year, hackers showed it was possible to hijack Google's Chromecast streaming stick and broadcast random videos to thousands of victims. Yes, they were left victimized. They were traumatized by people taking over their Fire Stick. But I just thought it was quite interesting, quite ironic, actually, that I think, anyway, even though the FBI are talking about this kind of thing, people will still say it's nuts. They'll still say that can't be happening. No, 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 no. We're all mad, right? The TV wouldn't spy on you. Kev Bakery's a loon ball. Well, let's see what else I've got in the grab bag here today, right? So I've got that one there. We've already looked at that. Yeah, I've not actually looked at the actual context of this story yet. But when I was doing my little surf before the show, it definitely tied in or had a feel of what we're talking about. So let's take a look at this. And it's a headline here from a website that I can't tell you the name of because it's like a website in Austin, in Texas. It's a really loud website. I like it, but some don't. It says unintentional viral video of microchipping the homeless in Austin explodes. So it says an Austin homeless man revealed how homeless people around the city are being approached to receive an implantable microchip, a phenomenon that a really bad website that I can't say the name of first reported on months ago. Now, in the following video, a homeless man receiving a barbershop haircut discusses how one shelter required that they receive injectable microchips prior to entry. And now that has me thinking. That really has me thinking, you know. I spent time homeless, as you all know. I don't hide it. And I'm thinking now, would I have traded, like, everything that goes with a microchip to get a nice warm bed, to get a roof over my head, or spend the night out like the weather tonight, hard frost? Wow. Wow, wow, wow. What a position to put people into, eh? That's where we're at. Remember years ago when Ike used to talk about the microchip and everything else? Remember all that? Yeah, that's exactly where we're at. That's pretty far down the road to the kind of dystopian future that we used to imagine was coming, right? And think of how sick that is. People already, you know, for whatever reason, they find themselves homeless and then they're put in that situation. Oh, we've got lovely warm bed. You want to come in for the night? Well, only roll up your sleeve. Yeah. Take some of my finest RFID, sir, madam, they, them, those, whatever your pronoun may be, and we'll give you that lovely warm bed for the night, you know. Safety, security, you know, so you don't have to worry about anyone harming you. You've seen the videos out there of these idiots that, like, attack homeless people for no reason. What the hell's wrong with the world? And now they've been put in this situation. Well, yeah, you can get that bed so long as you take the microchip. That's kind of crazy stuff, right? Crazy, crazy stuff. Now, I'm going to drop the link to the article over at tfrlive.com so you can check that out. You'll be able to check out the video yourself. But yeah, and over here in Europe, Sweden, we see it. I know there's companies in the UK as well that they're, I think, I don't know if it's mandatory, but I know there's companies out there telling their employees that they can kind of take the chip, use it to open doors, go to the printer, you know, really make things easier. Yeah, swipe your hand up at the door as opposed to pushing the door with your hand. You're already making the same motion. It's not about convenience. We know that. It's about tracking your every single move, even in the workplace. Every moment of your life. All of that data being left behind you like a trail. And you're not getting paid for it, but they are. And not only that, it's been used to control you in ways that you never knew. Excuse me. So this article goes on here. We asked them about it, and they were like, "Well, we'll give further like information, like when you get to the warehouse." The man tells an interviewer, "It's some kind of chip, I guess, some kind of device to put on your body, and then all you do is scan, and then you don't have to pay for anything anymore. You just scan." The man's revelations have caused the video to go viral, receiving over 1.4 million views within a matter of days. And a bad man in Texas first brought you the news. I'm bringing you the news of the UN social engineering plan last October. I love you, Alex. I really do. But don't get me in trouble. Breaking down Austin, Texas, rollout of the UN ID 2020 microchip vaccination program being tested on vulnerable groups. So, yeah, I'll check into that, folks. I found that quite shocking today when I read about that. So that's another story that ties into all of this. And, you know, we often see the movies depicting the kind of police state part or that aspect of the dystopic future. And how's that coming along in the real world? Well, the ACLU wants details about videos of Boston Dynamics robots in police exercises. Yeah, you know that creepy spot, the Dynamics or Boston Dynamics dog robot. You know the one I'm talking about. That one, the police have started to use them. Now, I get it. I suppose sometimes search and rescue, things like that, there's a place for these. But you know where this goes eventually, right? This ends up just like those dystopic movies that we were talking about. And how long before we swap out the human policing for robotic AI-driven policing, you know? Take all the humanity, all of the emotion out of it and just replace it with that cold, hard, analytical, factual, feelingless piece of kit that just won't discriminate. If you step over the line, you get it. And they're going to be accompanied by Spot the dog, I'm going to say. So then back in April, at our robotics event in UC Berkeley, that's one thing I learned when I was doing shows with Anthony Patch. Big shout out to Anthony. If you aren't checking out his work already, you really should be. But he was the one that introduced me to UC Berkeley. And we all hear about Harvard and Yale and places like that, you know, for the kind of elite kind of people where they go and things. But when it comes to UC Berkeley, you find a lot of the cutting edge science, the stuff that is talked about and the stuff that isn't talked about coming from UC Berkeley. And it's always good to keep an eye on there if you can. I get it. We're looking at so much information, it's hard to keep all of those plates spinning. But when I see UC Berkeley, I definitely pay greater attention. So it says Boston Dynamics head Mark Raybert showed off the video of the company Spot robot in a number of different real-world scenarios. Some like construction with first responders were familiar to anyone who's been following the company and the automation in general. Another scenario, put that one there, hang on, which found the robot opening doors during a training exercise for the Massachusetts police or state police was something different entirely. It was a brief video that demonstrated how the robot could potentially be used to help human officers out of harm's way during a really bad person event. You know, one of these heroes that think they can magically get to another dimension by doing really bad things, or a hostage situation. So all these months later, the video has raised some questions among some civil liberties groups. Civil liberties, Kev? No, civil. Including, most notably, the Massachusetts wing of the ACLU. A public records request filed by the organisation is in response to a Facebook post by the department describing the July event that, quote, seeks to learn more about how your agency uses or has contemplated using robotics. Now, I'll be controversial by saying this. I honestly do think there is a place for robotics in policing. Think about what I was saying before, you know, as opposed to sending officers into areas of harm, you could get the dogs to go down, search for places. It could go into properties. Maybe there's bad people in there. You don't know what's in there. And as opposed to risking the life of one of these brave individuals, well, send in the robot. It's got cameras on it. You can go and have a look first. You know, so I do think there's a place for that. And people will say, oh, Kev, that's just part of the agenda. You're playing into it. I'm just looking at it. I'm just being real. I know it's kind of pipe dreamish, the world I would like to live in, but There's no harm thinking about it, right? So yeah, I do think there's a place I think they'll take it too far. Of course I do. Do I think they'll go full kind of sci-fi on us and pimp them out and weaponize them? And who knows? You ever seen Atlas, the Boston Dynamics robot? Have you seen that thing now? Remember that clumsy thing that couldn't do anything? Now it's doing parkour. And I get some of the videos you see of the Atlas robot are fake, folks. They're CGI. They're meant to be funny and things. But then they mix that with the real ones, and it's hard to tell what's real, what's not anymore, because that thing, I tell you, when that starts policing the streets, but that's when we go to a whole new level indeed. Can you imagine that? It's just going to be unbelievable. It truly is. But I would love to know what you think about where we're going with this technology. Is it as dystopic that sometimes we think it's going to be? Or is it going to have advantages and bring about discoveries that take us closer to that cool moment where we really do start coming together and unlocking new science and going to the next level without having to merge with the AI? Can we rise up with it? Can it raise us up? Or does it take over? I don't know. I've looked at it always. I like to think about the advantages that it brings us. We're going to be talking about archaeology and things after the break, and it wasn't that long ago with the perfect example of how AI can be used for really, really cool stuff when it uncovered approximately, I say approximately because some are pretty, but approximately 140 new geoglyphs up where the Nazca lines are in Peru. Now, that's kind of evidence and backs up what I've always told you people in what to think about machine learning, AI, that very specific type, you know. You can train it with data sets and it's going to find images and patterns and information that humans, we just can't put together for whatever reason. You know, but the pure processing power of these things, even the scientists at times, they can't explain how it does some of the things it does. But even that narrow, specific AI, I talk about the cancer all the time. It spots the skin cancer before the doctors. That's literally saving lives, folks. But that very same technology is a technology that can be used to target people from an autonomous drone in a different data set is applied and trained on that. It's crazy, isn't it? The knife edge that the technology takes us on. And I get it. I get it. When you look around the world today, it's hard to be optimistic about where it goes. But we must try. We must always try, even if it's just to send that energy out there, the truth frequency way, right? Just send that thought, that intent out there. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. And whether the AI did discover new archaeological kind of geoglyphs up there in the Nazca region, a lot of them very cool, a lot of them very questionable. But it's that archaeology that we're going to be getting back to after the break. And I'm going to be starting to shift gears now because yesterday it really did. It's what we're going to build upon tonight. And I need to catch everyone up on the TFR audience out there because, you know, maybe you weren't there for the weekend stream. But this being the home of the Kev Baker Show, I want to give you a little bit of the backstory, the context before Max joins me after the break. And I can do it in 7 minutes. It's just a quick kind of bullet points of the woo that we've been hitting on. And it all started when, you know, myself and Scotty Lopez, it all started on the kind of members only YouTube stream. And we started to look at a story that was talking about tunnels under Germany, talk of tunnels all the way to Spain, and Scotland came up, and these were called Erdstols. And in one of the articles, it said it was like one of the most important archaeological sites, discoveries, things that not enough people were talking about. And that's exactly what it is, folks, because as we went into this further, we came to learn some of the lore, some of the backstory as to who constructed these things that nobody really knows who or when they were constructed, but they're very small. These vast networks, labyrinths of tunnels, some only 25 meters long and Other ones, vast galleries, and all under Bavaria, Austria. Scotland came up, Turkey, and the engineering involved. Absolutely precision perfect. Who was it? Because these things weren't built for humans. No, no, no. And you come to learn that they're called the Goblin Hole or the Mandrake Cave. And the Mandrake, as we learned on our way down this spiraling rabbit hole last night, dragons. We came across a piece of information about almost petrified rock that had turned into glass due to the heat, some amazing heat that must have been applied and something going on down in these tunnels. And what was going on down there? Humans have been down there. They can last a couple of days, but then the oxygen goes away. And yet they speculate that this was the dwelling place for some peoples. They even say animal life at some point. But I think the discovery of charcoal and the perfect engineering rules out most animals that I know. And what is going on down there? Well, we're going to be getting back into that after the break with Max. Because we need to sometimes look back to see what's going on in the bigger picture. And our ancestors, wherever we come from, be it the Germanic lands, be it the Americas, Australia's, African continent, wherever it is, folks, we all have that local traditions, local lore, something we're all proud about. Look at myself and Johnny Whistles. Johnny Whistles, he's in love with the Kelpies. We often talk about the Kelpies here, those magical water spirit creatures that have the ability to shapeshift. Some say, me included, that's what we're looking at when we talk about Nessie, that kind of thing. So we need to look more at other places, what their lore is, how it all ties into the bigger picture, because it does all tie together. And you start to see the commonalities between what we're talking about last night, and we managed to tie it in with Tibetan monks and some of the things that they were doing. So that took us to an entirely different part of the world. In the weeks to come, we're going to go and connect it to the Australian continent when we're joined by our very own mammoth hunter, who we've come to know and love. One of our audience out there, her and her husband are going to come on. A couple of archaeologists. We're going to get into how the Australian Aboriginal mythology and cosmology and everything else ties in with this bigger picture. Like some circular jigsaw that spirals inwards. Yet the closer you get to that center point where it all begins, where everything is, the more fractal the nature of the information becomes. And instead of getting closer to that dot, in reality, you're opening up more doorways, more topics. But together, it all comes just perfectly. And you start to see it all emerging. That's what David Icke done back in the day. It all came as big downloads to him. Jordan Maxwell, he's another one that sees that bigger picture. Chris Cherie, Geo, they're another one that they see it from that altitude as well. You've got to step back. You've got to be able to do this. And that's why the nature of this show, I've been talking a lot lately about I don't know what we are. What genre do we fit into? And I joke about the abnormal as opposed to the paranormal. I think we're doing exactly what we need to do. Because from week to week, show to show, sometimes we cover different pieces of the puzzle. And we never spend too much time on one. And that may annoy some, but I think it's our role in whatever it is that we've got going on here, whatever it is we're building up. We just put the information out there. We provide. You decide. So when I come back after the break, we're going to be joined by Max all the way from Germany. He's got, and it pains me to say it, I'm going to take a drink from my chewy cup. It makes me sick, but he's got a cooler accent than I have. Imagine it. I know, I admitted it. Yeah, we're going to be joined by Max, all joking aside. You're going to want to stay tuned for this. And then coming up after today's show, don't go anywhere, because Lucky and Dr. Brooks Agnew will be right here on the network, tfrlive.com, Truth Frequency Radio, with their show, Quantum Connections. So please, please, please stay tuned for all of that. And when we come back after the break, I'll be telling you about a very special guest that's coming on Wednesday. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, indeed. Where's my pen? I'd forgot to tell all of you who my big guest is coming up. So we'll do that when we come back after the break. I'll shove on a bit of tunes in the background so I can get a drink of my coffee as well. Dry mouth syndrome. It's always a danger when you do this thing. Here we go. Hang on. There we go. Let me just write this down and I'll be right back, right? Mermaid, I can't believe it. So many requests for me to put the smoking jacket back on. Can you believe it? I know, the smoking jacket. Come on. I'm going to connect with Max now. Stand by, folks. Stand by.
Hi, Kev.
Hey, there we go, Max. How you doing, man? Now we're live on we're live on YouTube right now, and we'll be going.
Yeah, I'm doing absolutely great, Kev.
Good stuff. How you doing? It was a great show last night, man. It was a pleasure to be a part of it. Thank you for.
Yeah, I never imagined we'd get down in the end so many rabbit holes as
It was
we managed to do.
It was a journey, brother. I felt knackered by the time we came off the call.
I mean, it was from the abyssal depths of pre-flood time until sky high up into the stars.
It really was. Now, I'm keeping an eye on the time here, and we'll go back to the network in just a moment. But thank you for your time again, Max. I think the audience, myself, we would all like to thank you, because it's hard work. You'll appreciate it. You were up till the early hours. Dare I say you were up until the morning. Near enough, the sun would have been coming up soon by the time you got to bed.
Yeah, at the moment, that's not a big deal for me, cause I'm kind of in between jobs, so there's plenty of free time right now.
Awesome. Well, what we'll do is we're going to get into this. We're going to do it totally organic. I know you sent some links today, but I want to hear more about the Germanic and Norse lore.
Yeah, I dug some stuff up that will definitely freak people out. Almost as much as the stuff we talked yesterday.
Awesome, folks. You're going to love this. I can tell already. It's going to be another one of these nights right here on KBS. So I'm looking at the clock. We're going to go back to the network in just a moment, folks. Stand by. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Kev Baker. Hour number 2 on today's Kev Baker Show right here on TFRlive.com, the place where we give you protection from deception and silence, as we say, is consent. That's why there's no shutting people like me up. And there's no shutting people like Lucky and Dr. Brooks Agnew up either. No, no, no. And they'll be taking over right after today's Kev Baker show. But we've got 1 hour down and 1 hour to go. And this is where we stand at the precipice of a rabbit hole that seems to be bottomless. We're going to go down again into the well. And we're going to pick the mind of one of our newest listeners out there. He's been a really big part of the show, actually, ever since he contacted me via Discord. And you know how we roll here on KBS. We go with gut feelings. We look for patterns. We look for synchronicities. There's been the traffic cone episodes along the way. There's been the hairy hands. And now we stand at the precipice, like I say, of a rabbit hole that includes one of the most interesting archaeological sites that I had never heard of and not enough people have heard of. But not only that, it connects into some of the really good woo, as I call it, paranormal, the supernatural, and some of the entities that we do share this planet with. Some of them we see, many of them we don't. Now, we talk about the Bigfoot on here. We talk about the Sasquatch, the Yowie. You call it what you will. You know what I'm talking about. We've often, though, gone into other cryptids, other entities that have been reported, not just in recent times, but all throughout history. And what's really important is that we still get witness reports and encounters today that feature, say, the Bigfoot, the aliens. But what we're going to talk about tonight and what we were getting into last night, and it's very, very linked to the archaeology of the site we're talking about, is the dwarves, the elves, and what else was I going to say? The gnomes. I almost forgot there, yes. Because this archaeological discovery, the erdstals, as they call it, these tunnels that are everywhere, they seem to be built for people or things or I don't know what that ain't quite the size of humans. They're very small, and it's said, and it's handed down to Germanic and Norse people from their ancestors through oral and written tradition that the little people may have once lived there. So let's go live to Germany, to our main man, Max. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing fine, Kev. I'm doing fine, and I'm all excited about starting to dive into the woo with you.
So are you feeling what I'm feeling? And Scott's feeling it, because Scott last night after the show...
Yeah, we got quite some synchronicity rolling.
Yeah, I think so.
Definitely.
That's why I want to strike while the iron is hot. I don't want to leave too long between what happened last night and what happened tonight. And I'm not going to compare the two shows. What's important is the information. And we took it so far last night. And tonight you've brought with you some stuff that you say is going to blow the listeners' minds. So we're getting into the dwarves and the elves. Where do you want to start, Max?
Yeah, I think we simply start with the dwarves, elves, little people, and how German or European lore depicts interaction between humans and these entities. Because if you look at all the old folk tales, there's an enormous number of tales that involve dwarfs in all, so to say, shapes and sizes. You've got friendly dwarfs, you've got evil dwarfs, you got basically the dwarfs that are more like the type of very, very skilled workers and craftsmen.
Now,
you also sometimes got more the typical, more kind of like magical dwarf that is able to grant you some kind of riches or wisdom. So they come in all shapes and sizes. And very, very fortunately, somewhere around when was it? Around about the first half of the 19th century. The Brothers Grimm, which I guess most of you will at least have heard of, they started collecting German folk tales throughout the whole country, especially also in the rural areas, and compiled them into a series of books. And they also wrote one of the first, so to say, scientific books on Norse and Germanic pagan tradition and lore. At least what they at the time still could learn and glean from what had been left over after Christianization. Because the time we turned Christians, most of that ancient lore was declared heretic, of course. And the Brothers Grimm basically saved a lot of that stuff, which was around as folk legend. And I do have some dwarf tales that I...
Well, when I was in the military, this is quite interesting because I hadn't thought about this until now, and it's a no-brainer, but obviously Norway, and one of the things that was really everywhere...
the Christmas gnomes.
Yeah, it was like the trolls, right?
Yeah, the little trolls.
Yeah.
But don't be too... but don't be taken in by those little friendly versions. The Norwegian mythology and Icelandic mythology also knows of a quite different kind of breed of trolls.
Oh, do tell me more. This is interesting.
It's also a huge thing among black metal bands, especially the ones from Norway, Sweden, Finlandia, and so on. Very, very often the trolls are described as very big beings, hairy, bad-smelling, and outright, up to an extent, also evil. However, it's questionable whether that evil attitude that was given to him maybe stems from Christianization. When they started to declare everything demon or devil that in any way had to do with the old lore.
That's exactly what I think happened with the Loch Ness Monster as well, Max. Because we had St. Columba going up to Fort Augustus in the 5th century, spreading the word and things. And he said there was an evil demonic monster that lay beneath the surface. Now, I think it was one of the Scottish kelpies. Again, a real thing, a real shapeshifter, and something that you find around water. And we came to discover that there was even a Norwegian version of that. And here again, we have this commonality, right? We've got these different entities, but in some way, shape, and form, they're all connected. We've just got different names for them.
And by the way, the Norwegian troll, or Icelandic trolls, they are also intimately connected, as well as fairies and dwarfs in that areas, to formations of rock, giant boulders, and so on. And I mean, in Iceland, the government and people still do have such a high esteem and respect of these beings that even highways are built around boulders, rivers, rocks, and so on that are considered as living places of these beings in order not to disturb or enrage them. They rather change the route the street takes than remove such a boulder.
Yeah, get over here. We've got areas as well, and one area up near where I'm from is Rosemarkie Fairy Glen, and it's situated in the Rosemarkie area. But it looks like something that you would imagine from some kind of Tolkien classic, and I mean, people can laugh at me. I'm not saying these things are running about here, there, and everywhere, but I think there's an energy, there's a spirit that is attached to the forests in particular, Max. I think.
Yeah, I mean, a forest is a giant living organism.
Yeah, big time. I totally agree with that.
It's a giant system that interacts. You have all the living beings inside the forest, including the plants, including the mushrooms, including anything that's inside that forest.
Even below the surface,
it's connected and interacts.
Yeah, the root systems of the trees.
Yeah, and not only the root systems, the mushrooms.
Oh, big time.
The mushrooms often can only grow in symbiosis with the tree's roots. And what is even more important, those few small. Yeah, okay, they aren't a plant. The mushroom mushrooms are in category of their own in biology, but the mushroom's bodies, they are basically the smallest part of the mushroom organism, because down below ground, there's the mycelium. That's
Yeah.
basically the roots of the mushroom, and that can reach vast sizes. Like, as far as I know, the biggest living organism on Earth is indeed the mycelium of a mushroom.
Yep.
It's somewhere over in the United States, and I think it cover like almost a square mile or so.
Yeah, I've heard that Paul Stamets talking about this. I'm trying to find the name of it here. I'll dig it up. Mushroom. It's in Oregon. It's called the Armillaria, and it covers 2,385 acres of the Malheur National Forest in Oregon. Yes, there it is there.
I mean, ancient Norse traditions, as well as Russian tradition, as well as the Eastern traditions of India, they all have a very close connection to mushrooms.
Now, you mentioned something there. You mentioned Russia. Now, I have never, ever really heard, I'm not saying it's not out there, but I personally have never heard much about this kind of thing coming from Russia, i.e. their myths, their stories, the stuff that we talk about, like Nessie and the dwarves and things from Germany. I never hear much about this at all, Max.
As far as I understand, Russia has its own set of cryptids, especially some cryptids that are very, very, very similar to what we know as the Yeti or the Bigfoot.
Yep.
For example, the Yakutian people. Those people we talked about yesterday in that strange Valley of Death with that copper cauldrons. They also have stories about the hairy man.
You see, this is crazy. I was looking at a story today, and it comes from Mysterious Universe, and it says Russian media shows a video of alleged female Bigfoot running. So yeah, this was going on about.
There's quite a lot of supposed Bigfoot sighting videos coming from Russia. You can look them up on YouTube.
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there actually.
And another thing is Russian mythology, as basically the origin of Russia as a country, as a state. It dates back to the Rus. Hence Russian.
Yeah.
And the Rus were a tribe of Vikings. So they were of Norse culture. So you find a lot of mythological characters and stuff that also pop up and are present, for example, in German lore.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they have some special stuff that Germany isn't familiar with, like Baba Yaga, that witch that is either depicted as an evil entity that tends to snatch off naughty children, for example.
We spoke
and
about
on the
her.
other hand, she's also depicted as a kind being that instead of snatching away the children, she will bring them kind of like gifts. So it's basically up to your own decision to choose.
You see, that's you look at witches, okay? The topic of witches, and one person will call a witch very evil, and another person will call a witch somebody very helpful. And the witch is doing exactly the same thing. They're taking advantage, in my opinion, of natural energies. They know some of the herbs and some of the plants to use to make concoctions that could be looked upon as a remedy or a potion, a magical potion. Everything has got this duality to it, depending on the observer, what their belief system is. It's crazy, right?
Mm-hmm. Very much so. I mean, most people here in Germany and the rest of the world, if you tell them about Amanita muscaria, that mushroom, the fly agaric, most people will call it a deadly, toxic, poisonous mushroom. And that's, for example, one of those completely or almost false tropes that somehow have managed to stick with people's minds for centuries.
They used to call the marijuana the devil's lettuce.
Yeah,
not
sure.
That long ago.
I won't say that that fly agaric is without risk.
Yeah,
As
exactly.
far as I know, there's at least one strain that is potentially deadly upon ingestion, but the others are usually only doing harm to your liver and kidneys if you overdo them, and you will experience if you take them in wrong. If you don't prepare them right, you will start to experience extreme cramps, vomiting, and so on. But if you prepare them right, that stuff that causes the side effects, negative ones.
Let me ask you, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask you. Do you think? And there's two ways of looking at this, and I'm not critical of either. But do you think that people discovered or started to talk about the gnomes and the dwarves after they had experienced the psychedelics that were on offer? Or do you think the stories of the dwarves and the elves came first? Either way, I mean, it's still magical to me.
If you ask me, I'd say people were very, very quick to learn about the plants and herbs around them, especially also about their effects, because you had to know what can you eat not, and what can you use, for example, to heal you. What can you use as a cure?
But it always amazes me.
Also,
how did people learn that, Max? How did people even learn that, right? Think of all the different plants that you've got in a forest. All the different...
To a point, it would be trial and error.
Yeah,
but there's a but to it. If we look at it from a more pagan or esoteric perspective, in every plant, as it is a living being, in every plant there is a spirit present.
Yep.
Let's say we have people, and we know the pineal gland was way bigger in the old times than it is today due to all the toxins we put in our bodies, especially fluoride and aluminium, which tends to build up in the pineal gland. And the pineal gland is thought to be the part of the brain where DMT is produced, one of the world's strongest psychedelic substances, which, by the way, can also be found in a wide array of plants growing on our planet.
Yep.
That stuff, combined with some other plants, can become active if you ingest it, and it gives you, as far as I know, I never tried it.
Same here.
It gives you a trip. LSD is kids' candy against it, and people all over the world tell the same stories. They see the same entities. They talk with those entities about the same topics independently of each other. They haven't shared their knowledge like, hey dude, I tried out DMT and guess what happened to me, and then the other dude also takes it and comes back like, oh, the same happened to me. No, they aren't connected. They make the same experiences independently of each other.
I look at our pineal gland almost like a router, and 99% of the time, it's very limited. But it's still amazing. We're still on this conscious superhighway, right? And whether we like it or not, we are connected. But then with the DMT, be it naturally produced or like you're saying there in the brain, or the mixing of plants, either way, it seems to almost open up the bandwidth.
Yeah, it sure does. And now imagine a time when you didn't have to take in DMT from some plant, but you had enough DMT inside your brain, and it was a natural state for you.
See, that's how I think we can already travel between the stars. Not physically.
Quite possibly with the energy body or the mind.
Yes.
And now let's say you would come across another living being, like a mushroom. You look at it, your pineal glands working, it's all natural for you, for example, to see energies, to see entities. Maybe also to communicate with them.
Yep.
And you'd simply, that's what shamans do, by the way. They would walk up to that mushroom, maybe meditate a few minutes, trying to make a connection, and ask that mushroom, what are you? And wait what the mushroom would, so to say, tell them about it, about himself. If it would say, oh, well, leave me alone, you don't want to eat me, or if it says, look, if you want to, you can use me for X, Y, Z.
Now, this sounds really out there, but I want people to think about something, okay? Because whether you've seen the clip the other night on one of the streams or not, we've all seen animal whisperers, okay? And they can get into the heads of animals. And for me, they're able to communicate. They're able to communicate almost, dare I say, like we communicate. Now, the reason I bring that up is I want to give what Max is talking about some context. Because if you're just coming to this for the first time and you hear about people speaking to mushrooms, I get it. Sometimes the knee-jerk reaction can be to laugh. It's ridiculous. How could you communicate with a mushroom? But if people can communicate on a conscious psychic level with an animal, then it's not too much then of a jump and a leap to see what we're talking about here. And what role, let me ask you, Max, before we go to the break, because this is where it ties back in to what we're talking about. What role do the elves or the dwarves, because that's one of the common entities that's seen, right? What role do they play?
Well, especially the elves are seen as very, very closely related to the plant world. Now, if you have a look at the Edda and what we know about Norse tradition, then there's one people, the Vanir, that the Ars, which is the gods of Asgard, come in contact with. And these Vanir are more or less described like elves. And these Vanir, they are very deeply connected to nature. They care a lot about nature. And I mean, at first they managed to basically like gods or men always tend to do. They start in war with the Vanir.
Now are these the same?
Sooner or later, they realize that it's better to form a truce and keep peace and work together.
Now are these the same? Now are these the same entities that people access when they're in that other dimension? On the psychedelics?
Not necessarily. No, I'd say that there is a chance if you are in the right vibration. I mean, it's more likely to encounter a plant deity or an elf in a forest than it is to encounter that being somewhere in a city.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's more like, for lack of a better term, it's natural habitat, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
the same as Max. The same as you wouldn't find, or you wouldn't expect to find a ghost haunting the forest.
Look at those people telling about meeting kind of like the gray aliens or some more reptilian, frightening beings that were promising all kinds of intriguing stuff if they just stayed with them during their DMT trips. That's usually people who took that stuff, for example, inside larger urban areas, or maybe also where you had more technical devices around, causing the fitting energy field for that kind of stuff to get drawn in.
Wow. Now, I've never ever thought of that. Your location when you're doing this could be key to the energies that you're opening up on, because
like Timothy Leary, the so to say godfather of LSD, put it during the hippie era. He said there's three defining factors for a trip. It's mind, set, and setting.
Now hold that thought, ladies and gentlemen, because we're going to be going for a break in a moment. My mind is already about puddling out my ear right now. This is fantastic stuff. And what we're going to do after the break is we're going to take it from the ethereal and spiritual realms and the elves that we find there, and we're going to take it back into the archaeology and some of the stuff that we were touching on yesterday, and the lore. Max is going to share with us even more on all of this great information. Now, let me remind everyone that you can do us a massive favor here at the network. Myself and all the other hosts would love for you to take just 30 seconds, copy and paste the link from TFR over into social media. Tell people that this is the place to come where they can find information on any of the topics that they are into. Absolutely any of them. And we cover so many on here on the network. And that's why I consider it the one-stop shop for all of your information needs. somewhere we give you protection from deception, and where we like to say silence is consent. So tell everyone about it. Be a pest, be a pain, be a troll, but not to be mistaken with the Nordic trolls. So join me after the break. One more segment to go with our very special guest, Max, all the way from Germany. We'll be right back. Well, indeed, Max, again, very, 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 very good information. And I'm sure all of the audience out there, they're loving some of this. They're trying to figure out what music to put to some of this information. I'm really, really grateful and gracious that you came and joined me here again tonight, shared your time with us. And where do you want to go when we go after the break? I'm going to give it to you. You can take us anywhere, Max.
Okay. Well, I guess we will have to look deeper into some of the folk tales and their relation to those archaeological discoveries, definitely.
That sounds perfect to me.
We also will look a bit into the Norse lore on dwarfs, and from there I'll try to, cause it's linked, I'll try to make a connection to what the northern lore tells us about, so to say, what I see basically as DNA experiments between the gods and other beings of myth, and maybe also mankind. Because you'll find that stuff not only in India.
See, this is such an important part of this, folks. The fact that it's not geography specific. You see the same stories being told in slightly different ways for slightly different times and different people. And that's why I keep on saying this builds the bigger picture. And it feels like we're getting right back to that point where at one point in the cycle we were before. Oh, it's weird, man.
And if there's still time then, if not, I'll put it in with the stuff I'm preparing on ancient India anyway. I'll show you some of the sacred mathematics or cosmic mathematics that the northern mythology holds for us.
Oh, fantastic. Right then, we're going to be going back to the network in just a moment, folks. So I'm going to take a little drink of coffee. I'm going to get ready for the final stretch here. This is going to be amazing. Remember, hit like, hit share, and help grow this show even bigger than it's getting. A big shout out to all the members out there on YouTube. Stand by. We're going back to tfrlive.com in just a moment. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're moving into the third part. Sorry, wrong, correction, rewind. We're moving into the final part of today's Kev Baker Show. There's that much information here. My brain has exploded and we're not finished yet. No, we don't roll like that here on KBS or at Truth Frequency Radio. Remember to tell everyone, come on, get out there, tfrlive.com. So let's get back into it, or should I say, let's get back down to it. in the rabbit hole with Max. And I'm going to give it over to Max here. Max is going to get into how the Norse or Norse lore, how that all ties in with some really freaky deaky possible scientific experimentation that went on in the ancient past, not just in the Nordic Germanic region, but other places of the planet as well. Max, welcome back. Thank you again. Take it away, good sir. Take us on this journey down the smallest and tightest but most info-packed of rabbit holes I've been in a while.
All right, Kev. Before I continue, I gotta do 2 very quick shoutouts, cause I gotta pay credit. There's one shout out to First World Problems, cause just exactly today, when I was starting to look into the northern culture and all that lore and stuff, I looked at his Discord and he had brought up a link to Norse mythology. Just exactly what I was researching at that moment. And I mean, later on, you hit me up and asked me, "Hey Max, can you be on air today?"
Now, Max, this is how it works.
Exactly on that topic.
Yep.
I mean, that's synchronicity.
This is how it works, right? I'll tell you how it works as well, right? Because Jason,
up through the roof.
Just a couple of months ago, I didn't even have any clue who Jason was. I wouldn't have known him if I'd bumped into him in the street. But now, here we are. We're all working together on the back end, whether we know it or not, but dropping the links, and you see how the connections start to work independently of one another. We're all coming together just at the right time to, I wouldn't say expose, because other people have put this together before us, but we're putting the information out there at a critical time. It feels like we're being pushed to do it.
Yeah, and the other shout out definitely goes to our member, ZX81V2. I've been chatting with him, or is it a her? I don't know.
Or a they, or a B, or a Z.
Or whatever, I don't know. However, we had a really nice chat again on the Discord this afternoon. And through that chat, some stuff popped up in my mind that I'll also will have to somehow implement in the show.
Ooh.
Yeah, sure, because before we now dive into those northern lore, and I mean it ties right in because it's about those ring structures. So if you would imagine that maybe those ring structures weren't meant to be entered by men to operate it, but they would remain underground and put on active, and you had to stand above ground on top of them to get the effect.
I think, and I've kind of put that out there before, that I think because it's underground as well, it's harnessing energies that we might not be aware of that the planet's putting out naturally. And like you say as well, that underground aspect, it gives it that shielding, you know, and I do think that potentially what they would do maybe in Egypt, or maybe places where we see the obelisk, maybe something goes into the ground, something like that, Matt?
Yeah, sure. And I mean, if you look again at the mushrooms, they tend to grow in circles. And these circles are also known as witches' circles. They are seen as a form of place where the energies converge, where they concentrate, and where you can get access to other realms. So would that, that's what you can see above ground. The mycelium lies down below, and I mean, somehow that's strangely similar to those ring structures underground. And then take into account a very old form of pagan burial, where they basically would take the body and cremate it, and all the while during cremation, and also later on interment, they would all do that inside a circle of stones that were placed around the burial site in the shape of a circle or a ship. And it's also known that some of these so-called ship tumuli weren't actual burial sites, but that they were set up as a ritual site.
Yeah, I get you. I get you.
Yeah.
I always sometimes wonder as well, Max, when you see some of the stone circles around the world. I almost, and again, it might not be right, okay, but I look at it almost like acupuncture because they're almost like stuck into the ground, and there's something energetic to them, and it might be the vibration when you start speaking in them, when you start playing music in them. I don't know, but I think there's multi-layered levels to what we see. You know, it's not just something that they done for fun, obviously. I think there was something mechanical to it and something ritualistic to it.
Definitely had purpose behind it.
Yeah.
What I'd like you to do is that you have a look at the current live stream material, because in there you'll find a link just above the line you put in as an kind of like order for today's stream, just that post above it.
I'm going to drop that
so
for
you can
also
get that up on your screen.
Yeah, I'm going to drop that for the listeners over at tfrlive.com so they can see what you're looking at.
It's only text, so if we read along, they will get it.
Yep, no problem.
It's just text.
So it says here, I'll read this as best I can, and it says the elves, Jacob and Willem Grimm.
Exactly. And if you would be so kind as to jump to the second tale, because that's I think
no problem.
As far as our stuff goes, the most striking one.
Okay, the second tale here says, once upon a time, there was a poor servant girl who was diligent and neat. Now, every day she swept the house and shook the sweepings onto a large pile outside the door. One morning, just as she was beginning her work, she found a letter on the pile of sweepings. She could not read, so she stood her broom in the corner and took the letter to her employers. It was an invitation from the elves asking the girl to serve as godmother to the baptism of one of their children. Now, at first, the girl did not know what she should do, but finally, they convinced her to accept it. It would not be right, they said, to decline such an invitation. Now 3 elves came and led her to a hollow mountain where the little people lived. Everything there was small, but more ornate and splendid than can be described. The new mother was lying in a bed of ebony, decorated with pearl buttons. The covers were embroidered with gold, the cradle made of ivory, and the bathtub of gold. The girl stood in as godmother and then wanted to go back home, but the elves asked her fervently to stay with them for 3 days. So she agreed to do so, and the time passed pleasantly and joyfully. The little people did everything to make her happy. Finally, she wanted to return home. They filled her pockets with gold and led her outside the mountain. She arrived home, and then wanting to begin her work, she picked up the broom that was still standing in the corner and started to sweep. Then some strange people came out of the house and asked her who she was and what she was doing there. It was not 3 days, as she thought, that she had spent in the mountain with the little men, but rather 7 years. In the meantime, her former employers had died. Wow, Max. So tell us, how is that relevant to what we're into today?
If we look at that strange underground structures, and the possibility that they were kind of like portals or devices that could create a very exotic form of energy or field, and then that would mean it is able to kind of like open a gap between space and time, maybe also create a sort of time bubble or a time loop, for example. And if you have a look at the rest of German folk tales, I don't know if you ever heard about the Untersberg.
No, that's a new one on me.
Oh, well, it also ties right in later on with some of the bad guys.
Yeah, the bad guys. Good man, I like it.
But however, there is a very, very, very well-known folk tale. It says that in the caves of the Untersberg, inside that mountain, there was a king lying asleep together with his whole army, waiting for the end times, so to say, to come, or a time of great need. And then he and his army, they all would wake up and deploy forth from that mountain, basically to take part in that kind of like final apocalyptic battle between good and evil.
Now, is this Ragnarok?
Yeah, that ties also right in with Ragnarok in the end. However, I think that lore of the Andersberg, that legend, goes far, way more back than Christian times. Because the king that is supposed to sleep there is usually referred to as King Barbarossa. We know that Barbarossa is an actual, real historic figure. He's one of the important medieval kings, and somehow people started to attribute his name to that king waiting inside of the mountain to come out.
That's wild woo, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. Now you also see why the bad guys were so fond of that story, because having that mountain and a final epic battle between good and evil, of course, they saw themselves as the forces of light, or presented themselves as forces of light.
Now, can I ask you as well?
Being the complete opposite.
Can I ask you as well? You see the Native Americans and other indigenous peoples that refer to mountains as almost stargates, portals. Would you agree then that ties in? Hang on, we've got a super chat. Thank you, Queen Goddess. Thank you.
It ties right in, Kev. Because I take it that most of our audience is familiar with the missing 411.
Yes, we talk about that a lot here.
So let's have a look at the usual circumstances when a person becomes part of the missing 411. You do have usually larger bodies of water and or larger formations of rock where they disappear. Next thing, usually the locations where they disappear are often, since old, already by the indigenous people, given telling names. That stuff doesn't happen somewhere on the flowery fields. It usually happens at places like the Devil's Cave, the Demon's Valley, the Spirit's Pass, and so on. Usually also regions that the indigenous people always say and also always said were taboo.
Yeah.
Now, having those strange cave structures pop up all over Europe, I mean, it would be foolish to think that they would only be on one part of Earth.
Yeah, exactly. It would make sense to me that these are typical around the planet.
I mean, look at the Northern American native people. Look at the Southern American ones. They also have a host of folk tales about caves and mountainous areas, or kind of like underground areas where they would get into contact with beings from other worlds.
Wow. Yeah.
And just what I discussed with ZX 81 V2. Imagine it was like I said earlier, that you didn't have to enter that ring to get the effects, but it also was already sufficient to simply stand on top when that thing went active.
Now, hold it right there, Max, because we're going to have another super chat again. Now, I've been dropping links over at TFR Live as well. There's one from yesterday that we spoke about, myself and Max. And if you translate that from German into English, it's one of the most fascinating reads you can get into. And this is where it connects back to yesterday and the caves and this archaeological site. This thing that I think is the least talked about and one of the most important archaeological things out there. And it's these caves, the Erdstals. And I'm going to be digging more into this. And I think we should be getting that super chat anytime soon. I'm trying to kill time till it comes along. But if not, I can go through it at the end of the show. Thank you, Manarus. But yeah, Max, you're knocking it out of the park, brother. You truly are. And what was happening there was it was somebody who was an Manarus was saying you're rocking it, Max. you and Kev really click. And it's this information,
Hey,
for
wow.
whatever reason, Max, we're being drawn together, and Scott, and the audience. All of us, you mentioned Jason and ZX and things like that. And we're all putting this information out because there must be something important to it that people need to hear it right now.
Yeah, and I think right at the moment we may be the only ones that combine those informations in the way we do.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. But take us more. So you were telling me though that this Norse lore, it ties into something we talk about. Myself and Joe Joseph. Joe talks about this a lot. But DNA,
sure.
DNA manipulation, stuff like that. Giants as
Now,
well.
I mean, it will take us right also back to the dwarves, because I mean, there's one monstrous creature known in Norse mythology closely related to Ragnarok, and that's Fenrir. Don't know if Fenrir rings a bell with everybody in the chat. Fenrir is a giant monstrous wolf, and this giant monstrous wolf is the offspring of an Ars god known as Loki, which is basically kind of like the devil character within all of the Edda and Northern mythology.
Was Loki a kind of magician kind of character?
Also, he's also known as the trickster.
Yeah.
On one hand, he can grant you quite a lot of advantage over other people, over your enemies. He can grant people kind of like his cunning.
But you're
on
selling.
the other hand, he's always got his own secret agenda alongside it, looking for his own gain.
Yeah, it's like when you hear people selling their soul, you know.
Yeah, basically, I mean, with the Norse mythology, it's not that clear cut and clean cut white and black imagery like you have it in Christian texts.
Yeah,
it's more ambiguous. On one hand, in certain circumstances, Loki can be an important ally to the other Ars, to the other gods of Asgard, and just a few blinks of the eye later, he'll again betray him.
Yeah.
So how did the Fenrir wolf come into existence? Well, we all know that besides the gods of Asgard, which are usually depicted quite similar to men, just way larger, more musculous, and also, of course, able to perform, how else would you put it, magic feats. Then you have the more elf-like ones, the Vanir from Vanaheim. And then you also have a kind of being that is simply described as the Tursen, or the Thurs.
How do you spell that?
Tursen, Thursen, and that basically means giants.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Well, and if you look at it, the northern gods, they are very, very often battling with giants, and these giants come in different flavors. You have fire giants, you have ice giants, and so on. In some occasions, they also tend to have kind of like fragile diplomatic relationships to some of them. And now to come back to Fenrir. Well, Fenrir is the offspring of Loki having naughty time with a giantess.
Oh, wow. Now this story sounds familiar.
And as far as we know from the Edda, it's not the only offspring he brought forth by that relationship. Also, the so-called world serpent, that giant serpent that the ancient Vikings thought that would encircle the whole of Earth. It's called in Norse mythology Jormungandr. That serpent is also a product of Loki having intercourse with that giantess. Now, if you imagine people that aren't really educated about high tech and genetic editing, how would you describe it if you were such a, so to say, uneducated person on that stuff? That somebody somehow created a hybrid or whatever cross between his DNA and some completely other life forms' DNA.
Yeah.
You would say they had sex.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. They had happy fun time. Interrelations. Yep. Yes.
That's how you could explain it to people to make it understandable.
Yep. You don't need to know anything about DNA to get that.
Mm-hmm. And now that Fenrir wolf, I mean, of course, when Loki presented his offspring to the gods of Asgard, they already saw trouble on the way. Because the thing was intelligent, it was fierce, it was powerful, it was big. So, and it came from Loki. So it dawned on them it would be wise to kind of like restrain that beast, just to be sure.
You see imagery of this beast in chains. A lot of it's in the chains. So yeah.
So they tried it by different means, telling beforehand to the wolf Fenrir, who miraculously was able to talk. I mean, come on, we have a giant wolf that is able to talk.
You see, I think this might sound mad, but I think before the scattering of the languages, somebody said this the other day, I think we could talk to the animals.
Yeah, and I mean, taking it into account that it's kind of like an hybrid being.
Yeah.
Does it maybe reflect some kind of memory of human-animal hybrids? Dogman?
Oh, the chat are going to love this.
I mean, maybe he tried to create something like it because either he saw fit to do so, or maybe because he saw it somewhere else in the universe.
Yep.
He thought it would be great to have something like that. Well, however, they told the Fenrir wolf, look, we want to play a game. We want to test your strength, because look at you, how muscular, how strong you are, how cunning you are. We'll try to bind you, and you'll try to break free to show us how strong you are. Well, and nothing worked. He broke any kind of chain, any kind of cage or whatever they tried to put him in. So what did they do? They called up the dwarfs. I mean, the dwarfs are known as very, very skilled smiths. Throughout the Edda, there are numerous songs and poems and tales talking about how the dwarfs designed, for example, unbelievably intricate gems and jewelry for the gods of Asgard, or how they forged weapons for them.
That's one of the ways I've heard of people in the forest hearing of metal being worked. And for me, this is where this ties in, because even the imagery that I used for last night's show, it included somebody forging a big sword, or should I say a little sword, because it was a gnome, a dwarf, an elf, whatever you call it.
Yeah, sure. And what the dwarfs came up with was a very thin silver thread. And that silver thread, it was worked in such an precise and unbelievable complex way. I don't know what they it kind of like interwoven or whatever. The Edda doesn't elaborate on that too much.
But it was special, right?
However, it looked very, very, very weak, and it looked very, very simple to the normal eye. So the gods took that silver line over to Fenrir. And Fenrir already was kind of like getting suspicious of the gods. Because time and time, every day, they came up with some new kind of restraint he had to break for them to show his strength. So they presented him this tiny little yarn as his last test. I mean, the wolf said, okay, come on. Before we start with that, I want to see a proof of goodwill and trust from you.
Now we're nearly at the end, so you need to kind of cram
sure,
it on.
I gonna get quick.
Yeah.
So basically, the god Tyr, god of war, one of the many god of wars in Norse mythology, stepped up, said, okay, I'm willing to place my hand inside the maw of the wolf while you put that line on him. So he stays calm. They put that line on him, and soon as he couldn't break free from that line and he realized that they had trapped him and tricked him into getting trapped, he bit off the hand of Tyr. And so they had that wolf restrained, and when Ragnarok comes, it is said that the wolf will manage to break free of that silver line, and on his race across Earth, he will devour everything in his path and swallow sun and moon and kill Odin.
On Ragnarok, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We've got Lucky and Dr. Brooks Agnew on the way. Not Ragnarok. It's better than Ragnarok. Stay tuned for Quantum Connections. I'll be back tomorrow. Don't go anywhere. Wherever you are, make it TFR and Denny. Touch that dial. There we go. We are off our home network. I want to thank you, Max. I know we had to cram in a bit at the end there, so I'll give you 5 minutes if you need to kind of wrap everything up. And we can come back to this. This is going to be, I think we're going to do a series of shows because, you know, Max is doing a lot of research in the background. And I really enjoyed hearing that. It's nice to hear other stories, you know. You don't often hear about the kind of Nordic, the Norse, the Germanic, dwarves, golden threads made out of what I would imagine is some monoatomic kind of structure. Because the elves are small, I think they work at the quantum level. I think they can literally manipulate the building blocks that make up everything. Just my own woo. But Max, over to you. You can wrap it up for us, my kind sir.
Yeah, sure. Maybe we just put some more in on Ragnarok.
Yeah, that'd be great, because I think it's probably something that not a lot of people, they've heard of it, but what does it actually entail?
Well, if you translate Ragnarok, it means about something along the lines like the final fate of the gods.
Okay.
And in the course of Ragnarok, not only Earth will be destroyed, but the whole cosmos. The whole universe will cease to exist.
Everything will be gone.
Everything will be gone. And, well, as I already told you, the leader and also father of many of the northern gods, Odin, he will get devoured by Fenrir, trying to battle him. The god Thor, which most of you may be familiar with through the Marvel comic series and the movies.
Oh, Anne loves Thor.
The giant world serpent, Jormungandr, which is also Loki offspring. He will battle with that giant snake, and he will manage to kill it, but not before that snake has given him a deadly dose of its poison.
This is cool. This is pretty interesting, man. I must admit, I'm looking at some of the imagery here as well. We've got the wolf, the kind of dog man there. We've got the big snake. We've got something that looks like Baphomet.
I'll read a part of it from the Norse Mythology.
Oh yes, please.
The dome of the sky will be split, and from the crack shall emerge the fire giants from Muspelheim, which is the realm of the fire giants, a realm of fire. Their leader shall be Surt. Surt is basically one of those prominent fire giants. And the leader shall be Surt with a flaming sword brighter than the sun in his hand. As they march across Bifrost, the rainbow bridge to Asgard, home of the gods, the bridge will break and fall behind them. An ominous horn blast will ring out. This will be Heimdall, the divine sentry blowing the Gjalla horn, to announce the arrival of the moment the gods have feared. Odin will anxiously consult the head of Mimir, the wisest of all beings, for counsel. The gods will decide to go to battle, even though they know what the prophecies have foretold concerning the outcome of this clash. And after all that is over, we don't really know if that is already a part of Christian lore mixed into the pagan stuff, but it's said that a new golden age will come from all of that.
Now, you see, there's that language again. We hear about the golden age so many times, but...
Basically, the whole universe will be reborn in a higher state.
And there you have the recycle again, only this time elevated, one level up. But before I let you go, and this is a bit of woo, just on a side note, but you mentioned there the blowing of horns. Now, we often talk about the mysterious noises that we sometimes hear around the planet. It's total speculation, but when somebody that knows Nordic or knows the tale of Ragnarok, do they get a different perception of what those horns, what those noises may be?
Well, if you ask me, in some cases, those sounds that are allegedly the apocalyptic trumpets have been debunked.
Yeah, a lot of them have.
People have shown how it's done to get that sound recorded.
You know what happened? You know, for me, because I watched this unfold.
But
at the very start, there was a lot of genuine ones, and then what always happens is, whether it's noises or anything, then everyone jumps on it because they see it's trending, and it gets so hard to know the real ones from the fake ones.
But I see that there is some truth to it, because when you look at how people describe the start, for example, of an DMT trip, they all talk about that unbelievably droning, loud, humming noise that they suddenly hear out of nothing in their ears before the trip starts and the entities show up.
Yeah.
Maybe if something happens that is energetically potent enough to reach even our unintoxicated minds, that might be an explanation for people hearing these strange sounds. Or maybe it's experimentation, because well, we know how sound and frequency can create, as it seems, energy patterns, as it seems is able to manipulate matter. So maybe someone is trying to find the right frequency to cause something we don't know what it is to happen.
Exactly, and that's the point.
Look at HARP.
Exactly.
Look at the HARP project.
And don't just look at HARP. Look at ionospheric heaters in general. They're everywhere. Yeah, because you've got one over there in Norway called iScat. We've got one over here in Wales. And again, HARP is a really good kind of launch pad into ionospheric heaters. And I often tell the story about in the army, they used to tell us you could bounce your signal off the atmosphere, and used to think it was really cool. Little did I know that way down the line, I'd be talking about that very technology, and I would realise exactly what it was. But Max, I need to get out of here early tonight. Last night really took it out of me. No, it really did. And folks,
I still feel it in my bones, because it was so exciting and so intense. I also need my sleep tonight.
Exactly, yeah. So what I'm going to do, folks, is I'm going to wrap it up here. I'm going to thank Max. I'm going to thank all of you as well. We had a couple of super chats coming in during the show. One of them didn't play, but now I've figured out how to do it. So, Queen Goddess, this is for you.
I am loving this show. Right on, Kevin and Max.
Absolutely. And of course, we had Germanus as well. Thank you very much, brother. Another chat that came in.
Stay off social media, people, and don't vote. You just encourage them.
Absolutely. So, Max, let me thank you. Let me thank everyone out there. I'll be back tomorrow on the safe space, and then I'll be back tomorrow night as well. We'll open up the phones tomorrow night for all of you to have your chance, your say. You can keep it on topic. We can go anywhere you like, but we will be back here tomorrow, same time, same place. I love each and every one of you. Keep looking for the information. Keep the minds open. Remember, folks, keep looking for that woo, but not to the point where your brain turns to black goo. We are out of here.